Jeffy is one of SML's most iconic and controversial characters, arguably carrying the channel to where it is now. He first appeared in SML movie Mario the Babysitter. What seemed like a one-off character quickly turned into a fan favorite, securing Jeffy a permanent spot in Marvin's family. But Jeffy's story has never just been sunshine and rainbows. Despite his jolly attitude, Jeffy's story might be one of the darkest of any SML character. So in this video, I want to go through all the key moments in Jeffy's life, from when he was a baby to now, to get a better understanding of Jeffy and his character. And hopefully, you'll learn something new about Jeffy in this video. Jeffy's early life. Jeffy was born on August 21st, 2004. His father, Jacques-Pierre Francois, was absent from his life, abandoning him long before he was born. It's unclear whether Jacques-Pierre Francois even knows that Jeffy is his son. While he has mentioned having a son, he never specifies who that is. However, we know that Jeffy is his son because we literally see Nancy sedate him in Jeffy's 20th birthday. Without a father in his life, Jeffy had to grow up with a single mother named Nancy. She wasn't a great mother either. In fact, she was a horrible mother. Much of the time, she would lock Jeffy in a cage, physically harm him, and leave him with nothing to eat but his own fingernails. She also left full cans of unopened green beans in the house, which could have started Jeffy's dislike for green beans, a food he would express hating, throwing any time he had the opportunity. He never attended school due to his mom's irresponsibility, being the reason why he still struggles in school to this day. He still can't seem to get past elementary school despite being 20 years old. Nancy not only treats her son badly, but Nancy also told him straight to his face when he was a baby that she was gonna kill his father as soon as Jeffy turned 18. And the reason she would do this is so that Nancy could inherit Jacques-Pierre Francois' $1 million fortune, revealing her plan way before he could even understand what she was talking about. Jeffy wasn't completely alone though. He had a half-sister who looked strikingly similar to him, wearing identical clothes and acting the same way. From a very young age, Jeffy had to learn how to fight, not only to defend himself, but also to protect his sister whenever CJ came over. And CJ was a horrible person who did absolutely disturbing things to Phoebe. Jeffy protecting Phoebe is something that would continue way later into his life, which is something that would be quite important moving on. However, despite Jeffy trying his best to fight back, he was no match for Nancy or any of her friends. The inability to defend himself and his sister was likely the reason for his aggressive nature and quick temper. Over the years, his anger must have built up from being in that cage, eventually reaching a point where he couldn't even tolerate it anymore, which is why we never see Jeffy take any crap from Bully. At first though, when Jeffy was first introduced in Mario the Babysitter, he didn't seem like the person to get into any fights, but later on, this was something that was really built into his character, with fans even theorizing of the idea that Jeffy might have super strength, because there have been many instances where Jeffy would show the ability to do something like bringing drawings to life, seeing into the future, or even going super sane. Despite all the strength and abilities from a young age, he was never prepared and ready for what was to come. In SML movie Jeffy's Sister Returns, while trying to learn how to ride their bikes, Jeffy accidentally pushes Phoebe a little too hard onto the road, and Phoebe ends up getting hit by an oncoming vehicle. Jeffy runs to check on her, but with no answers, and then he goes running off to Nancy. Although Jeffy thinks that Phoebe is sleeping, he says that the reason he always keeps his helmet on is because of this incident. This event must have been the last straw for Nancy though, because after the death of Phoebe, she drives Jeffy to an apartment complex and leaves him behind. Before driving away, she writes a name on his shirt, hoping he won't forget it, and then she attaches a note that reads, "Please babysit," for whoever may find him. Without a second thought, she presses down on the gas pedal, abandoning her only child, which serves as a twisted reminder for how dark the world can really be. But not all hope is lost for Jeffy, as he soon finds himself with new parents, people who actually care and showed him love and affection. Or, you know, at least it's a little bit better than living in a cage. While walking through the apartments, he knocks on Mario's door. Neither of them knew it at the time, but Mario would eventually become Jeffy's full-on adoptive father. At first, Mario didn't want anything to do with him, and he never understood him. He seemed so out of place with society. He wore diapers outside his pants, he stuck a pencil up his nose, and he always wore a helmet when he wasn't even on a bicycle. However, this all changed in SML movie Jeffy's Parents. inheritance, as we get to learn a little bit more about Jeffy in his childhood. While having another argument with Jeffy about eating his green beans, Marvin gets a call telling him that there's a woman looking for their son that they dropped off a year ago. And before Brooklyn Guy could even finish talking, Marvin is in pure joy and tells her to come to his address. But when Nancy arrives, Jeffy's mood visibly changed. It's like he's seen a ghost. Despite all the signs that Nancy was not a great mother, for some reason, Mario gives him back to his real mom. However, Jeffy couldn't just go back to his old life. He remembered the cages, eating the nails, the cigarette water, and he just couldn't do it. So like anyone would, he jumps out of the car and runs back to Marvin's house, basically begging him to let him back in. But instead of pushing Jeffy away, he lets him back inside until his mother Nancy comes back to get him. But after a little bit of convincing and some character development with Marvin realizing that he actually does love Jeffy, he decides to have a sting operation to get Nancy arrested in his house and then adopts Jeffy on the spot. And after this, they find a missing note that reveals that Jeffy has a $1 million inheritance check from his supposedly dead father, Jacques-Pierre Francois, who passed away on the news earlier that morning. But Jeffy wouldn't be able to receive any of this money until he turned 18, and he was 12 at the time Mario adopted him, which means they would have to wait 6 years. However, 6 years passed, and on his 18th birthday, we see Nancy in a maximum security jail. And it turns out this entire time since she's been arrested, she's been plotting her escape. And after she breaks out of prison, she teams up with Screwball to kidnap Jeffy. However, they end up getting it mixed up, accidentally kidnapping Marvin instead. And later on, after a massive chase in the van, Nancy ends up dying after getting shot by Jeffy and exploding with the van. But in the SML universe, death seems to never be canon, as she makes a comeback on Jeffy's 19th birthday, this time planning to kidnap more than one child for ransom. But she ends up once again facing death, dying in a shootout to Brooklyn Guy. But this time, she's supposedly gone for good. And this kind of gets confirmed because in SML movie Satan Claus, we see her literally in hell. But don't quote me on this though, because when Jeffy's 21st birthday comes around, she might just pull an Uno reverse card and surprise us once again. After the events of Jeffy's 18th birthday, it seems like Marvin completely changed as a character. One of the reasons Marvin kept Jeffy was because he was trying to get that bag. However, when it was time for Jeffy to receive the inheritance, it was revealed that Jacques-Pierre Francois was still alive all along and had just faked his death to make his paintings more valuable. At first, Marvin was upset because he wouldn't receive anything for caring for Jeffy all these years and enduring all of the emotional and physical pain caused by Jeffy's actions. But after Jeffy almost died in the van explosion, Marvin apologized to Jeffy and told him that even though he was already old enough to live on his own, that he could stay with him for as long as he wants, admitting that he was so used to Jeffy that he couldn't imagine life without him, showing just how much Jeffy has changed his life for the better. As of now, Marvin seems to have grown to accept Jeffy, treating him as his own son. But it turns out that Jeffy's family was way more massive than we thought, because it was revealed that Jeffy had grandparents, and they made one appearance in SML movie Jeffy's Grandparents, and they were portrayed as mysterious and frightening characters. When Jeffy was sent to live with them for a day, they nearly killed him and forced him to feed their 32 cats, which could explain why Nancy is the way she is today, because she most likely also had a tough upbringing, and when it was time for her to have her own kid, she likely passed on some of those same harsh habits. Because when it was time for Jeffy to have his own kids, he also wasn't a great parent, often treating them the same way how his mother did when he was younger. Jeffy has actually had 5 children: Jeffy Jr. 1, Jeffy Jr. 2, Puss 1, Puss 2, and Jeffica. All of Jeffy's children are taken away from him in some way. However, we really can't blame Jeffy though, because he was very young when he had them. But we can't talk about Jeffy without talking about how Jeffy was made. All the way back in 2012, nearly 4 years before he made his official debut in Mario the Babysitter, in a video titled SLL Update Capture Card, Logan shows off some characters that he plans to use as characters on his new animation series he was working on. One of the characters is actually an early look of Jeffy. The character was going to be around 6 years old and possibly be named Ricky. Instead of his iconic blue helmet, shirt, and pencil designs, he had a red shirt and helmet. A more accurate design of Jeffy could be seen on Chili's YouTube channel titled My Brother Dislocated His Arm, where Logan shows off a sketch of Jeffy's early design. A way more accurate version of Jeffy's design today, having his iconic yellow shirt, a unibrow, and added buck teeth. In this design, Logan opted for a red helmet instead of the usual blue helmet, but due to production issues, issues, the color was changed to blue. However, it wasn't until Logan's 21st birthday when his mom gifted him a puppet resembling Logan himself. And Logan's mom doing this inspired him to make Jeffy. Originally, he was never gonna have a pencil in his nose or any of the features that we see today. Until when he arrived and Logan and the crew were just messing around and got the idea to put a pencil in his nose and put a diaper on the outside of his pants. He was also originally gonna be named Doofy, but since they already had a character named Doofy, they decided to name him Jeffy. He was also originally gonna be played by Poopy, but due to him also playing Brooklyn Guy, he couldn't play Jeffy at the same time since it would be hard to play two characters in one scene. In SML movie Mario the Babysitter, Jeffy was never meant to spank his diaper. However, after Lance seemingly out of nowhere was making Jeffy spank his diaper, it was almost removed from the scene, but since the majority of the cast members thought it was hilarious, Logan ended up keeping it. What makes Jeffy such an important character is the fact that he cannot be replaced. A lot of characters in SML have stunt double characters for whenever they're needed for a video, but Jeffy is one of a few that doesn't have any exact replicas. In a vlog titled Irreplaceable Puppets, Logan explains that whenever Jeffy is not in use, he is locked up in a safe because he doesn't have a suitable stunt double to replace the current Jeffy puppet if he were to end up getting destroyed or messed up. A character with a similar issue is Chef Pee-Pee. However, unlike Jeffy, Logan didn't take the cautious approach with Chef Pee-Pee's puppet, leading to several instances where he'd be messed up for a scene, causing Chef Pee-Pee to appear quite old and worn out. It's said that replacing the original Jeffy puppet is impossible, but there are alternatives that closely resemble the original, such as those from the official SML merch store or alternate websites like Etsy. The creation and history of Jeffy's character is such a key moment in Jeffy's story. He is truly one of a kind. However, despite all the highs that Jeffy brought to the SML channel, there are also plenty of lows. One of the most popular examples being the demonetization and age restriction of the original SML channel. When Jeffy was starting to become one of the biggest characters on the channel, he was already quite controversial. Such controversies being Mario torture, offensive stereotypes, and overall Jeffy's behavior. At the time, YouTube was a lot more lenient on what was being uploaded to YouTube. As a result of this, Logan kept adding more adult-heavy content, like Shrek toilet scenes, blood, and so much more. However, this all came crashing down because on December 12th, 2017, a news outlet called The Sun reported that a 7-year-old boy tried hanging himself because Jeffy was doing it in SML movie Jeffy's Tantrum. Although Jeffy never showed the viewers how to follow his actions, Logan was ultimately blamed, causing every video on the SML channel to be either age-restricted or completely demonetized. But that's not all though, because a few months later on May 8th, 2018, Good Morning America, one of the largest news outlets in the world, aired a segment criticizing YouTube for not doing enough to prevent inappropriate content targeted towards children, using SML as an example due to its heavy adult content. One character who was ultimately blamed for this was Jeffy. When the kids were asked if they knew what was deemed appropriate and inappropriate, the kids mentioned SML and Jeffy, which caused more issues for Logan and his channel. So Logan made the promise to YouTube that if SML got its ads back, he would make a video of him personally burning the Jeffy puppet, the very same character that he himself created. Though while Logan got his ads back, the promise was never made because it passed the original deadline, which meant Jeffy was here to stay, and here for good. Overall, Jeffy is a controversial character who has changed SML for both the better and the worse. However, we can't deny that he has had a significant impact, not only on SML, but on fans of YouTube as a whole. He will definitely remain a popular character for years to come, and be remembered as one of the most controversial characters on the internet.